All right, you probably remember me talking about in the last excerpt of Marketer in Chief how William Henry Harrison caught pneumonia and died 31 days into his term. Now, what we forget about that is no one had died as president before. George Washington lived through his entire term, died shortly thereafter, but no president had died right during his term, and certainly no one has died basically a month into the term. So it was actually a really big deal on what exactly would happen. So I'm going to read you what the Constitution says exactly about what happens next. So here it is. Listen, see if you can get it. In case of the removal of the president from office, or his death, resignation, or inability to discharge the duties of said office, the same shall devolve on the vice president. Do you know what the fuck that means? I certainly don't know what the hell that means. Constitutional scholars have gone over that and they've had experience in dealing with that since then. But I think we forget what they're basing it off of is exactly what happened when William Henry Harrison had died and John Tyler took over basically on April 4th, 1841. So they're all going back to this particular incident. So I want to read you a little bit about kind of what happened right afterwards. There's research in the beginning of the chapter on what has happened when CEOs die unexpectedly, a great quantitative study that is worth the price of admission to the entire book, especially if you're in change management. The bottom line is don't push your CEO in front of a bus. It could be bad or it could be good. That's kind of the funny thing. For publicly traded companies, it can be either 9% worse or 9% better. The problem is you can't tell which one before you get started. So wrap your CEO in bubble wrap and keep listening here. So what we're going to talk about with John Tyler is exactly what happened. I'm going to read you a little excerpt of what happened next because it set the precedent for not only presidential transitions, but transitions in the United States and the corporate world as well. You got to remember up to this point, remember what happened in Europe when a king died. Maybe the king's son or daughter took over. Maybe it was off with his head. It was not pretty. This was one of the first opportunities we had to make a smooth transition from one leader to another without an election. This is a big, big deal. So they all trace back to 1841. So you should know what happened. So here's the deal. Let me read. Within 1 hour of Harrison's death, his cabinet met in person. They knew they were in uncharted territory, and more to the point, they didn't much like Tyler. The 6 men couldn't ignore him, but what to do? Tyler was simply there to balance the ticket, not govern. How could they limit his power during the remaining 3 years and 11 months of Harrison's term? In the end, they decided that Tyler would be something they called a vice president acting president. Additionally, they strategically remembered that Harrison agreed to govern by majority vote of the cabinet members, abiding by the collective judgment rather than his own. I'd like you to pause for a moment and picture the scene as Tyler walked into the room, exchanged condolences about Harrison's passing, and heard their decisions regarding his fate. Take it all in. Ready? Thank goodness we have a transcription of the response. It's pure, solid gold. I beg your pardon, gentlemen. I am very glad to have in my cabinet such able statesmen as you have proved yourselves to be, and I shall be pleased to avail myself of your counsel and advice. But I can never consent to being dictated to as to what I shall or shall not do. I, as president, shall be responsible for my administration. I hope to have your hearty cooperation in carrying out its measures. So long as you see fit to do this, I shall be glad to have you with me. When you think otherwise, your resignations will be accepted. Now, the language of the 1840s can seem a bit stilted. Allow me to translate. Fuck you. I'm in charge now. If you don't like it, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. What the cabinet didn't know, but we do, is that Tyler had himself sworn in by a local judge immediately upon hearing the news of Harrison's death. In his mind, there was no ambiguity. He was president, and he was sure as hell going to act like it. So that's it. I love the transitions and some of my opportunity to translate for a modern audience. That gives you a little dose of the personality in the book as well. If you have a problem, or you think, I don't want to read a history book with the word fuck in it, you may want to read a different one. That's okay. No judgment. There are plenty of sources in the book, so you can just buy it just for the sources, which is good. And speaking of buying it, the pre-order is available now on Amazon. You can go to marketerinchief.com, click over on the link that says pre-order on Amazon, and get the ebook delivered to you on July 4th. You won't even be charged until July 4th. If you want the print book or the audiobook, you'll need to wait till a little closer to July 4th for that. But again, exciting, very, very fun chapter. And if you're in change management or crisis communication, this chapter alone is worth the price of admission. So enjoy the holiday weekend here. I'm recording this on a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy it, and we'll see you tomorrow.